Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to Ed Up on the Ed Up Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Dr. Joe Salustio back with you on another episode here live from InsightsEDU, a conference put on by Education Dynamics, all about marketing and enrollment in higher education. We're at the Ritz-Carlton downtown New Orleans, Louisiana, talking all about how to recruit, retain, maintain, and graduate the modern learner. And we have somebody with us today who's going to tell us all about the modern learner and the way her institution is moving to serve that modern learner even better. Let's bring her in right now. Ladies and gentlemen, here she is. She's Dr. Carmin Chan. She's Vice Provost at Northern Arizona University Online. Carmin, welcome to the mic. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah, it's an abrupt turn off of the music, right? You get used to it, and then I just stop pressing it. But we have fun here at the Ed Up Experience podcast. Tell us a little bit about your role, Carmin, Vice Provost of NAU Online. You know, what's that focus look like? What are you guys doing? Give us the scope.
We're excited to announce the first of its kind higher education podcast conference, brought to you by Edu Alliance, the Ed Up Experience, and Podium. This is happening Saturday, July 12th at the University of Illinois Chicago campus. This is an in-person event, one day only, the first of its kind. This is for people working in and around higher education who are interested in starting a podcast, who may have a podcast, want to learn more about podcasting. So if you want to be there, please go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn how you can get your early bird registration, see who the keynote will be, and how you can submit proposals to be a part of this amazing inaugural conference. So that, again, go to higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today. Do you want to get invites to special events? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, behind-the-scenes episodes, and original content? Do you want to accelerate your professional development?
Yeah. I've been with Northern Arizona University for about a year now in this role, and it was really exciting to have an opportunity to come into a really well-established online area. NAU has been doing online education for over 25 years, and so we're kind of at a unique juncture right now where we're having an opportunity to really sort of re-envision version 2.0 of what NAU Online looks like, really with a student-centered focus, building support services that are uniquely tailored to the needs of our online learners, as well as working together with our academic partners across the institution to really elevate the online student experience in the classroom and outside of the classroom, and really meet their needs.
How does this, so you come in, you've been there a year. I'm guessing as you went through the interview, I can't talk today. I just ate lunch and then all of a sudden I'm falling apart. But you come in, the interview process is, look, we want to do something different. We want to, that probably was an attraction, right, to NAU at some point. You looked at the leadership. I know some of the leaders there, really good leadership. But what is 2.0? What is this? What does that mean? Or what does it mean in Northern Arizona? Can I say NAU? Can I just say NAU?
Let's do
it. What does it mean?
I think NAU is really in kind of a transformative moment right now. We have President Jose Luis Cruz Rivera, who joined NAU in 2021. And
shout out to Jose Luis Cruz Rivera. I got that right. We interviewed him way back when, Elvin, right? Sometimes. So shout out to him. Go ahead.
Yep. And, he's really come in and helped to provide a focus for our NAU community to really serve as an engine of opportunity for our region, and not only the state of Arizona, but thinking about the Southwest region as well. And, we have a long history of as an institution focused on, helping to prepare future educators and helping to support healthcare needs and workforce development and technology and business. We have some really amazing programs in these areas who've been doing online for a long time. But at the same time, we also have, some pretty mega online universities that are in our backyard.
Just a few right around you.
Just a few. And so I think, we've had to really continue to look at our own internal strengths and thinking about our regional focus. We have hubs across the state of Arizona that allow for students to have that in-person component to access support services and programming, but to really use online to power and sort of grow our a regional presence and really meet the needs of today's learners. And so that's been really exciting. And I think, I also, have had a long history working in online education at one of the other sister universities in Arizona. I came from the University of Arizona prior to joining NAU last year. And I really have a strong commitment to wanting to build an online unit and division from within the infrastructure of the university. So not as a separate side alone of Vestige, but really working together with our academic partners and our other campus colleagues to really help adapt what they're doing to be accessible to an online student as well as any of our students across any of our modalities, because serving online students is ultimately being student-centered for all modern learners today.
You said something that resonates with me, and I'll tell you a little bit of my story if needed, but there are really kind of two ways to do online. Do online, that's academic, right? Do online. We do online. Mm-hmm. You can buy, acquire, merge, blah, blah, blah. You can get a bolt-on online institution. We saw that happen. University of Arizona, since you brought it up, went and they bought Ashford, acquired Ashford University. It became the online arm of Arizona at the time, and I think they've since moved. You're talking about starting up an online function organically within what already exists. And there's kind of pros and cons to both of those. Mm-hmm. Some would argue that what you're trying to do is even harder because of the negative inertia that could be created, where you might have to cross, if you're doing a bolt-on, that school's kind of already made for it. If you're doing it organically, you have to change minds and hearts, and there's a lot of change management. Can you talk about that a little bit and what that's been like for you, and how you have to strategically think about that all the time?
Yeah. My previous colleagues at the University of Arizona, I think are grappling with some of those kind of different approaches. I had been part of the Arizona Online team, which had been the in-house unit of online learning that existed prior to that acquisition. Right. And so I knew full well kind of what that changing of hearts and minds looked like. But also, to build for longevity, you build intentionally from within your ecosystem. And I think, within NAU, it was this unique opportunity where they've been doing online for a really, really long time, and they had been early adopters, or at least certain parts of our campus community had been early adopters of online and distance education. But at the same time, we had an opportunity to really elevate what we were doing and modernize that, and think about ways to build our internal capacities with recruitment, enrollment, marketing, as well as student support services, because as the market has gotten increasingly competitive, if we wanted to be successful in this space, we have to adapt our approach and help to really make sure that we're aligned with the best practices in today's marketplace for online learning.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
It's hard to control the energy around us. Apparently, it gets louder and louder as everybody's talking, but that's okay. We're going to work right through it. We talk about online learning a lot. We talk about serving a modern learner, and sometimes I talk to so many people, and I say, look, take this modern learner and stick them through your current policy structure, and that policy structure will fail that student 99 times out of 100, somewhere along the line, because that policy structure, when it was built for a traditional on-ground student at many, I'm not saying all, many institutions. And so there's that policy part of this. And sometimes policies are tied to self-interest. Sometimes policies are tied to legitimate concerns, old ones perhaps. Elon Musk has this thing, whether you like him or don't. He has this thing that when he was talking about SpaceX and Tesla, called the algorithm. And one of the components of the algorithm is if there's a policy or somebody puts forth a policy, make sure they have their name written upon it so that you know the policy that you're following, because so many times somebody writes a policy and they're not there anymore, or it's adopted and now 9 years have gone by and you go, who wrote this in the first place? Can you talk about how you think about that, right? How you think about taking a modern learner and driving them through what exists and making sure that you change it so that they don't hit those barriers, because it's those barriers that make them hightail it somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it really comes down to having a student-centered environment where you try to put yourselves into the shoes of the learners that we're trying to serve, and understanding what they're bringing to the table and recognizing they bring great assets to 100%. Our institutions. And I think, at the same time, it's being willing to look at the policies through that lens and find ways to make it better. If you know that there's a common pain point or an area where students are being funneled out because our systems aren't working for them or our rules aren't working for them, then asking those hard questions about why, rather than blaming the student or putting, directing it towards them, instead directing it towards ourselves and asking, how can we make this better for them and really meet them where they're at?
How do you stay fresh, though? Because you're a change maker. You're creating something new or scaling something that's new to many, right? If you scale online for an institution that hasn't built it big and you want to scale it bigger, it changes all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. And if you're a change maker and you come across some of that negative inertia, there's this internal voice that happens, and it goes like, Carmin, do you really think this one's worth a fight here? Do you really think this one's worth it? And then I personally have found when and I answer back, no, it's not, that I'm giving in to the assimilation culture that can sometimes exist. How do you stay fresh to kind of drive that student perspective all the time? Because it's really easy for in conversations to lose it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the most important projects that my team and I have been doing since I arrived at NAU was this sort of a gap analysis project where we had a chance to do interviews essentially with every single service department and kind of major student-facing unit across campus, and asking very direct questions about how much utilization of their programs or services is coming from online students or not, and really brainstorming together with them why we thought there were potential barriers there. And in those conversations, I think coming with an open-mindedness where, again, we weren't making assumptions of things that we thought were working or not working, even though we had, anecdotal evidence that was showing us that. But allowing that to be a conversation together with colleagues, so it wasn't accusatory, but it was rather a collaborative conversation so we could think about how to improve upon what we were doing together.
Tell them like it is.
And then I think, from there, using those conversations as a springboard for us to be able to envision a different path forward. And so we've implemented new teams and new services, some in partnership with other units and some that were distinctly built for our population and are housed within my unit. But it gives us an opportunity to chart a different path forward. And I think part of that also comes from having leadership support from above as well, that we knew there needed to be change. There was an intentional choice, I think, of the folks that hired me to bring an outside external perspective in so that we had an opportunity to think differently than we have as an institution before and go find a happy medium.
What's changing? We're here. I was going to say, you're in it. You're recruiting the modern learner. You're here at InsightsEDU talking about marketing to enrolling, retaining, graduating the modern learner. What kind of trends have you seen from your role as Vice Provost at NAU or previous roles as the student evolves? What do we need to keep our eyes on when we talk about the modern learner, the adult learner?
Higher Ed PodCon is coming. Go to higheredpodcon.com. That's higheredpodcon.com to learn more. Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and become a subscriber today.
I think so much of the future is really driven by data-driven insights, helping to drive the human interaction that we can have with our online students. I think earlier this morning they talked about how, human presence is going to be this sort of boutique or elevated experience that, is extra special in sort of the busy online world.
Talk to a human and it'll be an exclusive experience.
Exactly. But really to power that in our resource-constrained environments is really... because of data. It allows us to be able to put the humans where they can have maximum impact and doing proactive outreach to students that need it the most. Not everybody needs the same level of support. Not everybody needs the same kind of sort of touch points throughout their journey. But we can use data from our learning management systems, based off of information that students are sharing with us as they go through the enrollment process, and use that to target our interventions and kind of create personas and those journeys for students along the way. way. And that really, I think, is going to be a key differentiator where we have to both, retool our student-facing staff to really have maximum impact when they reach out, but giving them data insights to power those efforts.
Did you just say data?
You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you.
It is, right? I mean, it's a data-driven world. We need to make decisions by data or through data. On the other side of the coin, there are long-standing traditions we have in higher ed. Like, think of the calendar itself. And this is something that I always talk about. I think about. There's this dance. I call it the higher ed dance. It goes like spring, fall, maybe some summer, spring, fall. You could sing a song. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that the modern learner always wants that. They want shorter time periods. They're doing in and out, maybe non-standard term, maybe CBE. Can you maybe talk about some of the things that NAU is experimenting with or thinking about or discussing?
Yeah. I think we've been grappling with those questions of, term-based asynchronous online learning versus competency-based online learning. We have a long history of doing competency-based education at NAU as well. And also being able to prioritize our limited resources in ways that allow us to kind of best meet the needs of our prospective students. I think competency-based education can offer some really amazing ways for students to self-pace their journey through and not be bound by sort of those terms in the way that we think of that in the traditional setting. But it also requires a whole different infrastructure to power that. A whole
different thought process.
And so it's not something that's sort of easily implemented. You have to really think carefully about the systems integrations in order to make that successful. And so, we've kind of compartmentalized our competency-based education. We're focusing on that right now predominantly in an international marketplace because that subscription-based model pricing is a really valuable way to appeal in the international market of online and adult students. And then, we're focusing a lot of our domestic efforts on more of the term-based model, but working with our academic partners to increase as many entry points as possible.
Why would you want to increase that number of entry points, Carmin?
Because students arrive whenever they're ready to arrive.
Oh, my goodness. Hey, thank you. I've done a lot of consulting in my life for colleges and universities. And the first thing I always say is like, well, we have this. How do we increase enrollment? And I say, increase the number of intake periods. Mm-hmm. That means you're going to capture more students when they're actually ready to go. If you have your intake happen every month, you'll have students interested every month. Now you have to make sure your structure is ready for that, or if it's every 2 months, or if it's every 3 months. Yes, you have to have enough classes. You have to have enough faculty to teach them. You have to have all of these other considerations. But if you get down to how to increase enrollment, the easiest thing to do without spending additional dollars on the front end, you have to spend it on the back end for faculty and such, is intake period. So I'm glad to hear you say that. And, there's a knock on provosts and vice provosts across the country that they're not thinking about these things, that they don't want to change. But, it's refreshing to hear, intake periods really do matter. You have to be ready when the student's ready, because if you're dealing with the adult student, the modern learner, it could be yesterday they're not ready and today they are. And so what are you going to do? How are you going to be ready to meet them?
Yeah. And I think it's a combination of building your programs from the get-go so that they have those entry points, but then also thinking about that intake process for new students. What's the orientation and onboarding? Because while you may not have new programs starting every week or with that sort of frequency, because you may not have capacity to do that, you can have an intake process that starts to engage those students, get them excited and ready and prepared for their online learning journey.
We want to make sure everybody's listening to this.
And then at the same time, you're also helping to set them up, that helps to improve your yield and ultimately get those students to commit to your institution.
Yeah, how do you back in the old days and for-profit institutions, which I worked for before I went to the nonprofit sector, was the stitch-in. How do you stitch them in? And I don't think it was a bad term. It was, how do you stitch them in? How do you make them part of the culture of the institution before they even begin, so that your yield is better, so that they have an identity with the institution? Yeah. So, because it's a competitive landscape. You might have another institution in the area or nationally, maybe internationally, end up in front of that student and that student goes, maybe I ought to look at this. But if they're ingrained with your institution, if they recognize themselves a part of the brand from before they even start, they're more likely to start and stay, right?
Yeah, I mean, just like we often hear this talked about when we're considering a more traditional aged college learner, the sense of belonging and how that can impact students' integration and retention. But that's true for online students as well. And really any hybrid.
I think we lose that so much. Like we don't think about the community part.
Right. And so helping them to build a sense of self that's associated with your institution and some of your institutional traditions, and thinking about how to translate those traditions into a virtual way of giving students an opportunity to experience those things is really what helps them to feel aligned with your institutional identity. It makes them more likely to persist in their current program and feel a sense of community to potentially want to re-enroll in other programming in the future. So we work closely with alumni and our Alumni Association to think about ways to incorporate our current students to have opportunities to engage as NAU lumberjacks from anywhere. Right. And then building virtual communities. We've got some really cool.
We have a president who brands the university very, very well out on LinkedIn and other areas. Yeah. All that matters. It adds up. Yeah. You were talking to co-founder of the EdUp Experience, Elvin Freitas, right before we started. And I actually like doing that because it feels fresh, because introducing myself seems all boring. But Elvin Freitas gives me a little bit of oomph when I say it. But you were talking about PLA, prior learning assessment, credit for prior learning. Students are taking non-credit courses. They're taking Coursera and Udacity, and they're taking all these things all over the place. By and large, universities and colleges have very complex, not user-friendly, this is by and large, not every institution, not user-friendly ways of understanding, of finding out if I get credit, of understanding the turnaround time. You know, it's not user-friendly. It's not like skipping the intro on your Netflix show. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. You were talking about it, and I really liked what you had to say. So can you just maybe give us a minute or two on how important PLA policies are that are easy?
Yeah, and in my previous life, or earlier in my career, I worked as an academic advisor for many years and worked with transfer students and other adult learners. And, you know, what I saw time and again is that students came in with these other previous experiences, whether it was through a college setting or through life experience. And so often our institutions don't actually either give them the credit for those experiences, or we give them general elective credit that can't actually be applied to their degree.
Inconceivable!
None of that, you know, ultimately is helping us to work towards the end goal, which is getting students across the finish line and to degree completion. And so I've been really excited in my time at NAU in seeing the ways that our faculty and academic leaders are really grappling with some of these questions and thinking about how we actually help to improve upon the direct application of transfer credit and prior learning experiences so that students are actually really able to use those experiences in ways that are meaningful to degree completion. So we've got some exciting work happening on campus, some different task forces and engagement with our faculty and academic partners to really ask hard questions and kind of, again, recenter the conversation on the students and getting them across the finish line instead of, you know, perhaps, you know, the past focus that tends to be wanting to, you know, make assumptions that our courses are the best and that any other, you know, prior experiences don't count.
Well, and I love that because I think, in my opinion, and I've long said this, if you look at the last several years, including the time of COVID, students have been transferring. There's been a lot of students that have some credit. They went out. They're adults. The school they were at didn't serve them appropriately, so they've waited a couple of years. Now, all of a sudden, they're hearing that education might be easier for them to get back into because the schools are thinking about taking transfer credit. Mm-hmm. I think schools that have really, I'm not going to say easy because that's not the right word, but intentional PLA policies that assess prior learning, that can turn that credit around if it's warranted quickly, are going to gain a huge part of the market share, and other schools are going to be left behind.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a way to differentiate an institution from competitors and ultimately do right by students and helping them to achieve their education goals.
Anything else you want to say about NAU, Carmin? Anything at all? Open mic.
Did you buy your tickets yet? Higher Education's first podcast conference is coming July 12th. Go to higheredpodcon.com, higheredpodcon.com. Get your tickets. Do you want to accelerate your professional development? Do you want to get exclusive early access to ad-free episodes, extended episodes, bonus episodes, original content? That's right, original content, invites to special events, and more? Do you want to get all this while helping to sustain EdUp? Then go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and subscribe today.
We're just so excited to be able to chart the course for NAU Online 2.0 and
2.0. That's my own sound effect.
And we're just excited to, have an opportunity again to continue to recenter the work that we're doing, helping to drive as an engine of opportunity for learners in Arizona and beyond.
Now listen up.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you should listen. I think you should follow Dr. Carmin Chan. Let's get her outroed appropriately. She's Dr. Carmin Chan. She's Vice Provost at Northern Arizona University Online. Check them out. Find out the work that they're doing and the great work Carmin is leading. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just ed-upped.